Good morning. This is Axel Merk, President and Chief Investment Officer of Merk Investments. Happy Monday, everybody. We have the Dow just up a tad right now. It was down earlier, up $2. We have no, that's the S&P futures. S&P futures are up $2. The Dow is up 249 bucks, 250 bucks. That's in part because of Boeing. And since I mentioned the company already, let me put my disclosure in there that this is not investment advice. Bonds, 10-year is up 1 tick now. The 30-year is down 5 tick. The 3-month treasuries are at 13 basis points. 3-month LIBOR at 31. In fact, the Fed funds rate is at missing on my screen here. All right. Then let me enough of the disclosure here. Let me go back. We have gold up. Now it's down 8 cents. No, it's flat. We have West Texas is up 65 basis points or $0.25 at 38.75 with West. And then ICE Brent is at 41.10. It's up 20 basis points. Global markets are kind of mixed. US stock 50 is down 1 basis point. FTSE is up 30 basis points. Asia was down. Nikkei was down 2.3%. The Hang Seng was down 1%. It's China, the CSI 300 down 70 basis points. Australia 1.5% down. Currency markets, we do have now the Swedish krona is the strongest performer, up 43 basis points. We had the euro leading the board, it's still up 30 basis points. There may have been some technicals. The 50-day moving average went through the 200-day moving average for the first time in a long time. Last time this happened several years ago. The euro had quite a run afterwards. Not making any recommendation here, just pointing to that sometimes technical do influence markets. The weakest currency is now the yen. That's been in a bit of a free fall here, down 48 basis points. These charts, of course, they quote unquote free fall. It's all relative. The scales do adjust on the screen as things move, but it is the weakest currency. That before earlier today, the sterling was the weakest currency. It's down 27 basis points at 23.03. Earlier in the day, it was up. Sterling has had some issues as they need to negotiate all these new trade deals. But nothing too dramatic happening in the world. The one thing that's happening in the US in the markets is the social media companies, some of them having a rough time with advertisers pulling out. And again, I'm not making any investment recommendation here, but let me just give you my philosophy on this. It is very, very difficult to regulate free speech. Now, obviously, there are private companies. And if the government were to regulate it, then that would be great for the companies because they could just say, hey, this is the regulation. The government is too much chicken. They like to criticize the companies, but they don't like to put in rules. Now, obviously, in the US in particular, we cherish the freedom of speech. And somebody's freedom of speech is the other person's offensive speech. Some stuff is clearly offensive and crosses some red lines. But who decides where that is? And at the moment, at face value, man, yep, that's easy enough. If you follow Facebook and Twitter, the one thing I've noticed on Twitter, which I appreciate much more than on Facebook, is that when something gets flagged, rather than just having an explanation as to why something is wrong, it points you to a list of articles with different opinions. Now, clearly, there is still an algorithm almost certainly curating that sort of list, and so there's plenty to criticize, but I much prefer that over a individual just pointing out what is wrong in the article. And on that note, politics, clearly there's stuff that's just to most rational people that's completely obnoxious. But I have yet to see a political campaign that has not had misleading information, and by moderate people. Now, obviously, in today's environment, not everybody is quite as moderate anymore. Being more outrageous is more popular and whatnot. But let's just take something as mundane as fair. Well, fair is in the eye of the beholder. The French Revolution, there was liberté, égalité, and fraternité. The liberty uh, is where do you put the weight, right? And liberty is everybody does what they want, right? Equality, the communists, everybody's equal. Fraternity, how compassionate are you? And depending on where any one of us is on that spectrum, we have different preferences, and it's not for us to decide where it's different. Now, all that said, social media, the way that many of the more popular platforms are structured, they attract the extreme. You put the like button if it's outrageous, right? I have 10,000 plus Twitter followers, but I don't have 100,000, I don't have a million. And in part it is, maybe it's because I don't have a good singing voice, but more importantly, it is because what I tweet isn't all that radical most of the time. And a good reason for that is because I'm regulated. My speech is censored. I am regulated, amongst others, by the SEC, and so when I say something, I can't say buy, sell, sell, sell. This is great. This is horrible. I'm not allowed to accept endorsements, so I cannot like something that somebody else says about me or retweet that. Many people do it, but everybody kind of is subject to their own interpretation of the rules, and I prefer to have a conservative interpretation, and then so yeah, it costs me and not having more followers. Now, is that good or bad? I don't know. But if you are a quote unquote normal, meaning not regulated user, you are attracted towards the more extreme form of speech. And if you think that all the other guys are extreme, well, welcome to the club, right? You're in your echo chamber, they're in their echo chamber. And there are new forms of new generations of social media attempts that are more engaging and not less the like form. And so maybe by the time we'll regulate all this, we'll have moved anyway to some other way of engaging. And I'm not giving the answer here. I'm just saying that the issues are complicated, and I have sympathy for those who want to take it slowly in changing how to do it. But more than saying, hey, we need to point out when somebody posts something that's crap. Um, it is about how to kind of have a more inclusive, civilized way of engaging and building bridges. And so, if something is highly misleading and somebody thinks it's important to point it out, I do think the approach of showing a different perspective or making that available might be an interesting approach of doing it. Um, but I have read stuff from the left and from the right, and while I disagree with some on both sides, there's a perspective that many people believe in, and so by just telling them you're wrong, the condescending approach doesn't necessarily get you many friends. Anyway, so that's my Monday morning sermon. And with that, I am looking at what's happening in the markets. It is a shortened week. We will get the non-farm payroll report already on Thursday. Usually, would expect to get it a week late when it's that tight to the end of the month, but that's going to be out, and that's going to be out in comparatively low volume. And so let's expect some fireworks before the 4th of July, maybe. Oh, one more thing. Testing, and talking about the coronavirus tests. Um, the obviously more cases are popping up. Somebody posted on Twitter that they got an emergency text message on their cell phone. Well, welcome to the club. Most of us have probably experienced that in other areas that have been to that. But in Texas, they are kind of having their first wave right now, and so they're going through the same learning curve that we all have. One of the things I have seen is that we have started to see some serial testers, and that may well be the new normal. I know a person who's gotten tested twice in the last 2 weeks and already scheduled to get tested again in a few days. And she says that the first time was because it was encouraged for asymptomatic people to do. Second one was because she is planning to go on a trip with some friends from different counties, and the third one is when she's back from that trip. And each of these tests required waiting in line for 50 plus minutes and takes 2 days to get a result. And so those sort of things might get better, but maybe, who knows, maybe that is the new normal, so we can go about our lives and see our friends. So anyway, with that, none of that is investment advice. Take care of yourself, and talk to you soon. Bye.